right, we go now to the Orange County Register building, where standing by is political reporter Norberto Santana. How you doing, Norberto?
And Rick, thanks for having me. Good.
Yeah, thanks for coming back on. Let's start first of all with the Sheriff's Department overtime study. For folks who may not know, the Orange County Register launched an investigation into overtime by the Sheriff's Department. And after that report came out, then another study was done, this time by the County Board of Supervisors. Am I correct in so far?
You're right. We published our investigation a few months ago that looked at the sort of huge growth of overtime spending at the Sheriff's Department over the last decade under former Sheriff Mike Corona. When the County Board of Supervisors read it, they asked their newly formed performance auditor to go in and take a look, which was just amazing to see what these guys came up with. It was kind of interesting. We took a look at the issue in a sense from the outside, and even though we got good cooperation from the department, these two auditors, Steve Danley and Ian Rudge, over at this newly formed office, I have to say, did a wonderful job. And you know, I guess in part I might be happy because I think they backed up a lot of what the Register found. They generally found that over the last decade, the Corona administration did a horrible job of managing overtime costs. Now, granted, in law enforcement, just like with firefighters, they will tell you that it's a 24/7 agency, and when there's a vacant shift, you can't just let that not be filled. However, you know, this office found instances where, for example, some deputies are able to actually generate overtime while at the same time generating paid time off on the same day. I talked to Sheriff Hutchins today, and she said that she was amazed when we wrote that in our blog. And when she ran to her staff and said, "This can't be right, right?" And they said, "No, it's exactly right. That's what we negotiated with the local deputies union."
So there were things that were negotiated with the deputies union that aren't really legal, so to speak?
No. They're absolutely legal. They may not be reasonable, but they're legal.
Oh, okay. Big difference there. Huge difference. So
True.
The study that you did at the Register and the study that was then done by the independent company, they really didn't differ that much. They found many of the same problems.
Absolutely. In fact, it's not an independent company. It's a newly formed office within the county, and the idea of that is to do this at many more agencies and instances, which allows the County Board of Supervisors. You know, a lot of times the newspaper will raise issues or others will raise issues, and they don't have, the board themselves, the ability to send out an auditor that can actually, you know, as Supervisor Pat Bates told me, sort of peel back issues and kind of give them a better sense of things. And yes, this office found exactly what we found, that the managers at the department, who really in many ways wanted to do a better job of managing that overtime, were just never given the instruments. They were never given the direction under the Corona regime. It was really treated like a penny jar that you could just keep dipping into.
So did you speak with Sheriff Hutchins, though, at all about how she was going to change the overtime policies?
I did get a chance to talk to the sheriff this afternoon, and it looks to me like she's moving very fast on to incorporate a lot of these issues. The auditors credited the department for being very cooperative, certainly a huge change from when Corona was there. She mentioned that they're looking at moving in up to 30% or replacing 30% of the deputies that work in the jails with correctional officers, which we found is a much cheaper worker and can save the county up to $10 million a year. And so she's moving on that front right now.
Norberto, I want to follow up on a story you had this week in the newspaper about the county retirement system, that $8 billion, it's tough to get the same answer from different county officials on where these investments stand.
Rick, it's a good point. This thing has just become a huge political football, and it gets as hot as it is outside when it comes to these pension issues. Four of the main labor unions were over at the County Board of Supervisors yesterday, and they were just livid. And you're right. On the one hand, I was talking to Reed Royalty, who's the head of the OC taxpayers, and when he puts that hat on and talks about the importance of things like Measure J, which gives voters sort of veto power on any future pension enhancements, you know, him and Supervisor Morlock certainly paint a very grim picture of the pension system. When you hear administrators from the pension system give updates on how they're protecting the investments, they give a very rosy picture. And I think that generally mixed message is making a lot of people uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, Norberto, we appreciate you joining us as always. We know you're busy, and folks can look up to your log. It's ocregister.com/buzz, and it's the Daily Politics blog right on there. Thank you so much for joining us, Norberto.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Norberto. And